fa l'americano, americano, americano. Ma si nati in Italia, sienta a me non c'è sta niente a fa. Tu fa l'americano, tu fa l'americano, tu fa l'americano, tu fa l'americano.
Hello, welcome to Italics, the Italian American magazine. I'm your host, Anthony Tamburri. March is Women's History Month. Italics will bring you two segments dedicated to the 99th commemoration of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, which took place March 25th, 1911. Prior to 9/11, this tragic fire was the worst industrial disaster in the history of the United States, claiming the lives of 146 people, women, children, and men. Now let's go to Lower Manhattan for the official commemoration of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire.
What does ciao mean? Hello or goodbye, same thing, right? So bella ciao means when you're saying goodbye to who you love. It's sad, but I want you to shout it out in memory of those who we're here to honor today, all right? Bella ciao. Ready? Bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao.
Members of the victims of the Triangle Fire to please come up on stage. All those family members, please come up on stage.
What I want to call your attention to is the family members that are here from the young girls and young guys that died 99 years ago. We have the family members of Morris Bernstein, Jacob Bernstein, Essie Bernstein, Delia Gitlin, Daisy Lopez Fitz, Rosie Wiener. Yes, everybody say hello to the relatives.
Welcome, brothers and sisters, friends, to the 99th commemoration of the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. In this building to my right, the Ash Building, where 99 years ago, 146 young women, few young men, were burned alive inside that factory. On March 25th, 1911, a fire began at the Triangle Shirtwaist Company. Shirtwaists are blouses. And when that fire began on the 9th and 10th floors of that building, to my right, the doors were locked, and the workers could not get out. The doors were locked because that employer was fighting a union organizing drive and wanted to keep the union organizers out of the building. And because there were locked doors, the workers could not escape. And a big crowd gathered, a bigger crowd than this gathered on this street. And they watched the windows, and workers stood at the windows, and firemen stood on the sidewalk. Fire trucks were here from within 90 seconds of the fire alarm. Fire trucks were on this street. And the ladders went up, but the fire ladders could not reach the 9th and 10th floor. And the result of that, they couldn't reach the workers trapped inside. Firemen stood on the street and a crowd stood and watched as young women held hands and jumped to their death on that sidewalk. By the end of the day, 146 immigrant workers, mostly Jewish and Italian, had died in this fire. We're here today to honor these brave women, but we're also here to remind ourselves that we face the same threats today, unfortunately, that these workers did 99 years ago. Last year, more than 5,000 workers died on the job in America. Last year, 90 workers died on the job in the city of New York. Almost 5 million workers in this country went to work and injured their bodies for the right to support their families and do their jobs. We live in a society 99 years later that the immigrants at that time who were Jewish and Italian, and you'll hear their names. Now the immigrants who work in the factories and offices and cafeterias and hotels and workplaces of America, they're no longer mostly Jewish and Italian. They're Chinese and they're African, and they're South American and they're Caribbean and they're Central American and they're Eastern European. But the discrimination and exploitation of immigrant workers suffers today as we have criminalized immigrants in this country as we did in 1911. And brothers and sisters, that must stop. We need immigration reform right now. And we wish that we could say these events in garment factories are a thing of the past. Unfortunately, they're not. Less than 1 month ago, in Bangladesh, at the Garib and Garib Sweater Company, 21 workers were caught in a fire with the doors locked, just like they were at Triangle. The fire lasted 2 hours. The workers could not escape from the factory. The fire ate up the oxygen and suffocated the 21 workers to death inside that factory less than a month ago. That factory is in a faraway land, but it produces clothes for H&M sportswear sold here in New York City. It was just as wrong in 1911 at Triangle, and it's just as wrong in Bangladesh today. And H&M, who's a customer, ought to be held accountable. And today, workers face the same conditions these Triangle workers faced. So we're here today, brothers and sisters, to commemorate the struggle that they began to form unions, that many of our members and workers carry on today to protect themselves in the workplace. Better wages and benefits, sure, but protection and dignity and respect and a safe workplace on the job, which is what today's event is all about.
99 years on, we still gather to honor 146 people killed in the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. Why? Because we owe them a debt of gratitude. They paid with their lives for the benefits that keep us all safe today. Over the last century and a half, 1,141 New York City firefighters have given their lives to save others from the ravages of fire. These men, without a doubt, were brave and courageous. They were selfless, but they were simply doing their job. In that sense, they are part of a long and proud tradition of American labor, a tradition defined by hard work and at times terrible sacrifice. For that reason, firefighters and fire officers have a keen appreciation for the sacrifice that the 146 Triangle factory workers made, more than most. We understand how much fire safety means, both to us and to the public. As a lifelong New York City firefighter for over 40 years, I have seen firsthand the terrible devastation that occurs when fire safety rules are unheeded. I have been in fires where people have died needlessly because apartments were carved up by illegal partitions by unscrupulous landlords, or smoke detectors were not working. We have made huge strides in improving fire safety in homes and businesses. The last 8 years alone have seen fire deaths drop to historic lows. But unfortunately, it's still the case that immigrant communities are amongst the most vulnerable to fire, just as they were in 1911. In 2000, one of the best chiefs this department has ever known wrote an article about the Triangle Fire. He said, and I quote, Still, to this day, it is doubtful whether any other New York fire tragedy has produced the horror, the shocking sacrifice of life, the outrage of the public, or the beneficial reforms of the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. The man who wrote those words was my closest friend. His name was Jerry Barbara, and he was killed on September 11, 2001, along with 342 of his brothers at the World Trade Center. The battle to improve fire safety is never fully won.
It was the end of the work week for two sisters, Rosie and Katie Wiener, both union members in a non-union shop, my great aunts, at the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. It was Saturday, March 25th, 1911. Rosie and Katie were at the end of a brutal week of monotonous labor with few breaks, toiling in crowded, cramped rooms where conversation was not permitted, locked in when flames shot up around them. Rosie, 19, and Katie, 17, made decisions that enabled one to survive and one to perish in the fire. Rosie, engaged to be married, was filled with hopes and dreams. She was saving from her salary of $8 a week for a farm in the country. Katie, young and spirited, was animated and bright-eyed, the youngest of the family. When the fire broke out, they were together on the 9th floor. And then, in the smoke and panic, they lost each other. Looking for her sister Rosie, calling her name, but unable to find her, Katie grabbed the cable of the last elevator to leave. She was the last to get off the floor. Her legs banging against the wall and hitting people's heads, she managed to get out badly banged up, but alive. Rosie never found her way out. Katie went on to testify strongly at the trial in which Blanc and Harris, the factory owners, were later acquitted. And it was their brother David who followed Harris and Blanc as they left the courtroom after the trial, shouting, "Murderers, murderers, not guilty, not guilty, where is the justice?" And then it collapsed, according to news reports. That Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, which stole my great-aunt Rosie's life, spawned, as we know, great changes in labor laws and the growth of unions throughout the country. These heroines and heroes died for a greater cause. And we must never forget that they helped change the course of labor history.
You know, it's said those who can't remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And that's why we're here today and we'll be here every year. 146 lives that were lost. 146 families that were torn. All by a ruthless employer out to make an extra buck. In the last 99 years, we've come a long way. We've improved the safety and well-being of union brothers and sisters in the workplace. But we always remain mindful of the risks and the danger posed by those employers who place profit over people.
And many of those people who perished in that fire were immigrants and women. They worked hard to support their families, like my mom did as an immigrant from Taiwan. And my mom worked for many years as a garment worker in sweatshops. You know, this is an experience that generations of immigrants have shared. But that's what makes what happened at the Triangle Waist Shirt Factory such an emotional flashpoint for so many generations of New Yorkers.
And that tragedy can never be forgotten, because that is what spurred so many things to change inside of this city. But as the controller said, should tragedy be the thing that causes people to change? Should we not learn from that that should never happen again. And sadly, that is still happening, not only in this country, but throughout the world, as you have all heard today.
A particular thank you for the many of you that have joined us for so many years that we have been doing this. And I want to particularly remind you that next year is the 100th anniversary of the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. And we will be back. And we need each and every one of you to come back to remember that tragic day. Are you going to be with us next year? Are you going to be with us next year?
But it was a good thing because the laws that were passed from this fire, the Factory Service Commission, were still in effect today, and they're still using them today. Like doors that open out, not in. You had doors that were locked, but they opened in. When you had 3 or 4 girls piled up behind the door, they couldn't open it. They're not allowed to keep stuff on the staircases anymore. They had polished cut on the staircases.
I'm Lucia Grillo with Italics. We're at Judson Church in New York City's Greenwich Village, commemorating the 99th anniversary of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory Fire, which killed 146 factory workers in 1911.
The Triangle Factory occupied the 8th, 9th, and 10th floors of the Ash Building in New York City. The building located at the intersection of Green Street and Washington Square Park was under investigation for violations of building codes. The factory was a sweatshop for immigrant workers, mainly women who made shirtwaists. The men cut the fabric while the women sewed the pieces together. Most of the immigrants were of Italian and Jewish descent. Women locked in all day long. Basically, it was slave labor. It was grounds for the largest industrial disaster in New York City history. My name is Mary, and I was working on that day. It was a beautiful day in Washington Square Park. Lately, there was talk amongst the women who congregated here about the dangers of this dreadful workplace. Doors opened inwardly, not outwardly. There was no way for us to escape the fire and no way to communicate to the floors. The only intercoms were on the 8th and 10th floors, which, coincidentally, is where the boss's offices were. By building code standards, all buildings were to have 3 stairwells, but the Ash Building only had 2. The owners decided to build a fire escape, but it was never finished. It stopped at the 6th floor.
Mary and I were engaged to be married. I loved her so much. I saw the fire escape and yelled to her. But she insisted I help her friends first. So I threw a chair through the window, looked down, but it was too late. The fire was everywhere. I lifted them up and out of the window, one by one. I lifted up my Mary and kissed her goodbye for the last time.
It's funny all this time, I thought I knew the truth. I thought that I was all I could be, but now I see, suddenly believe in every dream. I was too scared to dream.
lost their wives. Children lost their mothers. The lucky ones ran down the stairs or got into the elevator. Some went to the roof and crossed over to the roof of the NYU building. The factory owners, Mr. Harris and Mr. Blank, were never punished.
Once I sewed a shirtwaist, sewed it bright. Mama, we can eat tonight. Once I sewed 1,000 all in one day, slaved hard to make extra pay. Once I sewed 1,000 in the fading light. Mama, we can eat tonight. Once, out in the cold, we begged for a job. Didn't care if they treated us mean. Started growing old right away on the job. I was a kid at the machine. Hey, do you remember? We tried to smile. Somehow that made it all right. Hey, do you remember? We shared a smile. Mama, we can eat tonight. I'm Sarah Saracino, the fastest girl on the 9th floor of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. 3,000 stitches a minute. What is it, Mr. Bernstein? You're gonna find me again? How much is it this time? 10 cents for laughing, 8 cents for talking. How much for breathing? That's right. I breathe, I talk, I laugh, I complain. I'm Sarah Saracino. I'm going on 18, and I'm tired of being chained to this machine.
Girls, girls, teenage immigrants, tell me, where did you go in the fire? I jumped to the street where my bones and concrete meet. The sewer, my blood ran through. I jumped to the street where my bones and concrete meet. The sewer. Persecution, misery. We were starving, needed a buck. I got on that boat and tried my luck. And I made it across the sea to that wave of liberty, to the garment industry. I worked the Triangle Factory till the amber waves of flames caught me. So I dove to the sky, broken window promises, spring air. I prayed, New York City, catch me!
As we go marching, marching, in the beauty of the day. A thousand kitchens darken, a thousand mill lofts gray. We go marching, marching, we're marching to for men. Men are women's brothers, and together we will win.
So if people want to get involved with the coalition or participate next year, where can they go for more information?
Well, there's two places. The first is to come to our website, which is rememberthetrianglefire.org. The other is we have a Facebook. We want you to do something. It can be something really small or really big. We want to support you and help you put you in touch with people who can help you. So sign up to become a participating organization. And all that means is that you will do something, big or small, for the centennial in March 2011.
From Judson Church, for Italics, I'm Lucia Grillo.
Next on Italics News Briefs, we bring you some of the events taking place in our Italian American community.
The story is about a first-generation child. It's a coming-of-age story, and what that first-generation child goes through growing up between two cultures. Finally, there was my mother's nemesis, La Schetta Raggiata, the raging spinster, who every night through her window you'd hear, "T'ha dato tutta la mia vita. I gave you my whole life, Ma. When are you gonna die and leave me in peace?" And one night, her wish finally came true. "Non morire, Ma, please don't die." To which my mother said, "But is she ever happy?" It will be at the Manhattan Theater Source in the heart of Greenwich Village, and that's 117 McDougal Street between 8th and Waverly. And you can go to my website, which is bloodtyperagu.com, or call for tickets at 866-811-4111, and tickets are $25.
The Calandra Italian American Institute presents an annual conference, Terre Promesse, Excursions Towards Italian Topographies, April 22nd through 24th, 2010. The opening reception will be on Thursday, April 22nd, with the conference held Friday and Saturday, April 23rd and 24th. For more information or to RSVP, call 212-642-2094 or email calandra@qc.edu.
Well, that's it for this episode of Italics. Thanks for watching. Next month, we will bring you a story about the campaign to save Our Lady of Loretto Church in Brooklyn, New York. In the meantime, we ask you to mark your calendars for April 8th at 8 p.m., where we will bring you a conversation about this campaign on Italics 2.0 on live stream. Again, thanks for watching Italics. I'm your host, Anthony Tamburri. See you next time. Arrivederci alla prossima puntata.